right, greetings, aloha, peace and blessings to everybody out here in the worldwide audience. It's my honor to introduce myself. My name is Makua Ray, and I'm here with this stellar panel of beautiful souls today to share in the community voices, Original Nations community voices, as part of the side event for the COP26 activities happening, which we know are very important, and it's a blessing to be able to drop in with everybody right now in this way. I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California, Tongva territory, and it's truly an honor to be here now. I think in the way we want to open this, well, firstly, I'd actually like to acknowledge the relatives on this call together as we are together. So I want to acknowledge Cindy Boyko. Blessings. Thank you. Please feel free to introduce yourself briefly, and then maybe I'll do a little grounding. And where you're calling in from. One second, let you unmute.
Sorry.
Perfect.
So I'm from the Haida Nation. I live in British Columbia, Canada, as far west as you can go. And we live on Haida Gwaii, our island, and which is paradise. And I'm so grateful to be here. My Haida name is Sudith, and my English name is Cindy Boyko. And I'm grateful to be here with this panel and just have the opportunity to create some energy around taking care of our planet together. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. Dear brother Ikaika, please introduce yourself.
Aloha, thank you, Makua. Very nice to meet you, Cindy. Aloha, guys. My name is Ikaika, calling in from Oahu, Hawaii, in the Ahupua'a of Heia. A very honored and privileged to have the opportunity to share with all of you folks, the collective, and also to have the responsibility of stewarding the land. So mahalo for the introductions, and I look forward to sharing more. Aloha.
Mahalo, mahalo. So with that, I would actually like to ask Ikaika to show us the view he shared before we came on live, because I think it does really help set the essence and the energy for this moment. As Cindy said, we want to look into and feel ways to be better stewards of the sacred earth for the time that we're here to share in this way. So please share with the people that visage you shared with us. Truly inspirational.
Mahalo, I would be honored. So this is the Ahupua'a of Heia, and this is what my office looks like most of the days. Here in Hawaii, we mostly have blue skies, so.
Yeah. Wow, so beautiful. So beautiful. So grateful for the opportunity to see and witness this in real time in such a beautiful way, and to help give the viewers and listeners a chance to tune into what is inspiring us to be here, inspiring the gathering in Glasgow, and that prayerfully the relatives gathered there are deepening their resolve to serve in a good way and to be on the future forward path of regeneration and rebalancement of our sacred earth. So thank you so much for sharing that vision with us, Ikaika.
You're welcome. Aloha.
Aloha. I'd like to invite our listeners just to take a few moments, and if you're sitting down, maybe just take a few moments. So we just want to take a moment in to breathe in the gratitude for even just being here now together, having the health and strength to be here and to share in the sacred way. And as you inhale the gratitude, just think of all that you're truly grateful for. And as you exhale, just exhale your love in all directions, beginning with yourself. So let's inhale that gratitude. And exhale that love. Inhale the gratitude for Pachamama, for all of our relations. Exhale that love and send it out from your heart to the heart of Mother Earth. One last time, inhale that gratitude. And exhale, send that sacred breath, knowing it connects to all life. I want to say a special prayer for our relatives all around the world going through challenging times that we find ourselves in. Just knowing that we are all here for express purpose to live our truth, truly to speak from the heart and to stay in our light, connected to our ancestors and open to what this beautiful future has in store for us as we unite, as we come together. We give thanks to the great spirit of all life, animates all life, has created the sacred earth in each one of us, imbues us with the intelligence and the wisdom to recognize that the highest love is service. So may we continue to serve in a good way and be kind to ourselves and to each other, knowing that everything is interrelated and interdependent. What I do to someone else, I do to myself. What I do to the earth, I do to myself. So we give thanks and just take in a deep breath again with gratitude. And exhale the love. Thank you all. So I'd like to just share a little bit about myself and you know, where I find myself at this moment. I'm of mixed heritage, and I'm adopted actually. So I don't have the direct knowledge of my ancestral bloodlines in that way. But what that's driven me to is a real recognition of the greater relationship we have to all of our relations, really and truly. And that we have no matter where we're from, we're all, in its own way, we're all indigenous to this earth, and we all hold that responsibility wherever we step. And so we know that, and I've learned in my walk in the planet, in the years that I've been granted, just to know it's like we're being welcomed as a guest everywhere we go here. It's like going to a relative's home. We enter with that reverence and that regard, that respect. And that's what we want to continue to share and amplify here. And prayerfully, again, those gathered at this gathering and those listening to these words today and feeling the energy that we're sharing are also in their own way walking this earth in a gentle and good way, inviting that approach, that reverence, because it's what we truly need now. You know, with all that we're learning, with all that's revealed at this time. I've had the good fortune to sit with many elders over the years from different traditions. And I can say for sure, as I'm sure our panelists here today can attest, everyone has a very similar story. A very similar story, fundamentally. We're more alike than different in truth. And so I think one of the things I'm compelled to speak from the heart is that we must, as a human family, unite. We have to unite in the effort to be good stewards. We have to unite in the effort to make a difference at this most important time. Every choice we make does carry a certain weight to it, and so we want to be mindful of that. And this is no different across the entire planet, whatever cultures we come from. We all share this one earth. And that breath, that ha, that we inhale and exhale with love and gratitude. And so my sense for what's happening right now in Los Angeles, obviously it's a large city. It's a megalopolis of a city. It's the complete opposite of what we just witnessed there in Oahu, in Hawaii. And, yet and still, this place, like every other place, Haida Gwaii, like every other place, Washington, D.C., Melbourne, Australia, every other place around this world, we're all going through a major healing. It doesn't matter where we are. And one thing I was meditating on earlier today was this idea that healing is a process. We can't rush healing. We're in a healing process right now, together. We're all in it. Some of us are aware of it. Others are waking up to that. And we're in that process right now. Many have told us about this time it would come. And now we're in that time that would come. We're well in it. And as we're in it, we're able to look around and see each other all the same. We're able to witness each other and hold each other in that compassion and knowing that we're relatives, we're related. There's a Quiche Mayan term, in Lakesh, which means I am another you, in Lakesh. I think the traditional, there's a word in the tradition of the Hindu tradition, namaste, very similar meaning. It's the recognition of that divinity. And so I just wanted to presence that now as we embark upon this discussion, this sharing, this opportunity to talk story and share with each other about the good news, because I believe there is good news. I believe there is. We also have important things to share and discuss, from the perspective of how we're working and why we're working and what it is that we're here to serve in terms of the transformation underway. So I think I'll say one more thing and then we'll rotate to Cindy. But there is one of my teachers, often misunderstood, I would say, but a brilliant, brilliant soul. And he left a statement that says, I am one with the earth. The earth and myself are one mind. And it's regarded as what's called the manifesto for the noosphere. And it's an interesting term, the noosphere, but it really points to the thinking layer that surrounds the earth. And as we are here in our human form, for the purpose and the time that we're here, we're a part of this collective thinking layer. We're contributing to it all the time. But as part of this transition that we're all going through, Earth is awakening as well. So a lot that we have been unconscious to, that we are awakening to, is also impacting the Earth awakening. And this is what I mean by the healing is a process. And so I just want to commend everybody who is on their healing journey, knowingly and unknowingly. But thank you for showing up to the planet at this time, because that's essentially what brings us here, to live in that truth and that support and service. So the healing is a process, and so is the convergence of each of us. So I want to pass the microphone, if you will, to Sister Cindy at this time. So thank you so much.
Oh, that was beautiful. My name is Cindy Boyko. I've been sitting on a board that manages the southern half of Haida Gwaii for 21 years now. It's something that I'm passionate about. I feel like it's the right thing to do with my life. And I can't believe how lucky I am and how privileged I am that I get to show up and every day and just do what makes my heart happy. Haida Gwaii is my home, and I come from one of the villages down in the southern part of Haida Gwaii. My mother's mother's mother come, so I know where I am, and that place is when I'm there, and I'm lucky enough to go there once a year doing what I do. But when I'm there, I remember who I am deeply. It's my peace with the planet, because it's that place where I know I belong. And so I get to bring that out into the world in everything I do, because I get to connect with that every now and then. And so I feel like if we could just allow everybody to feel a little bit of that, even once or twice in their life, the world would be a different place. And so that board that I sit on, nothing happens in the southern part of Haida Gwaii without us knowing about it. And we actually sit there as a co-management team with the government of Canada. It's something that's not done anywhere else. We actually have equal authority at that table. The Haida Nation appoints me, as well as 2 others, and the government of Canada appoints 3 people on that side. And in 2010, we signed the marine agreement portion of the land agreement is called the Gwaii agreement, because the Gwaii is what's the southern part of Haida Gwaii is called. And then in 2010, that was signed in 1993, and in 2010 we signed the marine agreement. So now that's all that's doing is bringing it together as it should be. Everything depends on everything else. And so this is what I do, and the work is important, and I explained how going there makes me feel. Residential school, smallpox residential school, all of that stuff has divided us, and so many people don't get to go into their ancestral lands, and we try to make it possible for our school kids to get down there so that they start to learn, and then the Haida people as well start to learn about the area and why it's important. And so I'm losing my train of thought here, because I'm getting a little bit emotional about it, but as I do, that little speck on the map that we look after has become a light for so many others because of how we're doing it. And oh, I know where I was going with this. So co-management is a process as well. It's a healing process between the government of Canada and First Nations people, and it's starting all over in Canada. I'm not sure how it is in the United States, but it's still not gotten to a place of where we are with it. So we had and have a perfect opportunity to heal and start doing things in a way that makes sense for the lands and waters, and for the people who depend on those lands and waters. We're ocean people here, just like Hawaii, just like many other places. But that ocean also depends on the land, and the land depends on the ocean. And so we have to look at it holistically. We have the climate change issues, which I'll touch on, which I want to touch on, like, we have waters warming up and starfish wasting disease and kelp not growing. Kelp's a really important piece of the puzzle for the oceans here and for the Haida. It's a nursing ground for smaller fish species as well, but it's a place where herring, which is one of our key species that feeds everything else and us, lay their eggs, and we have forever gone and picked it out of the water, and this is what we do. And it's not just a food to us, it's a food that we bring in that brings everyone together. And when you see how happy everyone is, it joins everybody. Everybody during food gathering, and especially with GAO, and we haven't had it for years here because of, climate change, because of overfishing, whatever it is. But the most important aspect of it is the joining it creates when we get it. And my husband, who is a chief of his clan, used to go and get it, and he'd just pile it up outside, and his whole clan would come and just be so happy, and they'd start telling stories about the old days and teach others about all of that through that process of getting that important food. And I can tell you, when I eat it, it's heaven. It's one of those foods that as I'm chewing it and crunching those herring eggs on kelp, I'm transported, and it's something that grounds me as well. It's just something that we all enjoy, and that healthy and important to us, and gets us away from store-bought food. And so health, we create health with all these foods, and that's just one example. And so that kelp depends, we depend on that kelp being there for the herring to lay their eggs on, and to nourish us through that, as well as many other species. And so I wanted to mention it. We call it cow. It's not herring eggs to us. We call it cow. And so climate change, water warming up, who knows? And I talked to many people, and in the end, it's 1,000 tiny cuts that starts affecting everything. It's not any one big thing that we've been able to point our finger at. Just monitoring it is, as we are dealing with it, is where we're at. We're also getting weird weather patterns, like dry. We live in a rainforest, and it gets so dry some years now, and it starts affecting, that dryness starts affecting ocean life as well. Shellfish are also exposed to extreme cold and hot now, and so there's a process going on here, and it just rolls along. It's not just one species affected, it's everything as we go along. And it's also getting wetter, if you can believe that. And so those so much rain has started eroding areas, including in our own little community here, but down south, around some of the village sites that are right on the water. They create slides and weaken the root systems. And so now us, as we go in there as managing the area, and we have to top trees or take trees out because they're uprooting and weakening those systems. And so also pulling up artifacts and remains of our people. And so this is the process we're in now, and having to deal with those kind of things that we never had to before. And so one thing I do want to say, though, like that, all of that is bad news, and we're all in the same boat, having to look at that in all of our areas. But one thing I do want to say is with we've managed to use some of that for the better. Like we had a hurricane force storm year before last down there. Well, we have for hurricane force storms here all the time, but it was really, it uprooted all kinds of things. And so it pulled up all kinds of artifacts that we were able to look at, pick up and use, and start learning about our history more than we have been, because that stuff was made available through those natural causes. So it's not all bad. And so we get to study some of that stuff that we never did before. And anyway, those are some of the challenges we're having. And I don't want to talk too much about that, but I think it's important that and I think First Nations people everywhere, and especially along the coast in BC, we're right on the ground with that stuff because we depend on the ocean. And so we're watching it all the time. And our knowledge about that is gained by being here, not necessarily going to school and learning about science or whatever. And so at my table, we're trying to combine that science with traditional knowledge all the time so that we're getting a balance of information that makes sense to everybody, and in particular the Haida Nation, because we need their support to move projects or initiatives forward. And so, and I said it already, and so did our last speaker, I'm sorry, your name. We need to look at things holistically, and here's where all that stuff is just side stuff to me. It's the joining that makes the difference. It's the coming together. It's the caring about each other that creates magic and miracles for us to find paths to take care of our lands and waters and our planet in general. Wherever we are, it's coming together as people. We all want the same things, and I feel like I'm repeating some of the stuff that's already been said, but it's important for me to say it. When we take care of each other, we open doors for all of us. And I know this because of the work we've done on Haida Gwaii, and people from all over the world have come to us to ask us how we're moving things forward. People from New Zealand, from many other places in Canada, and when we care about each other, when we let go of the roles we play and look at each other and learn from each other, we create those paths, and then the solutions start to appear about how we can take care of the planet. And we never know what those are going to look like until they are there. They come to us because we set the intention for that when we have no idea what they're going to look like. We may try different things, but sometimes they're completely different solutions than we ever thought they would be. But it truly is the joining. For me, that's what I think. It's the joining that makes it happen. And I'm so grateful to have an understanding of that, and so grateful for the healing I've done in my life, and for being able to sit with people like my panel here and just know that there's that deepness going on in the world now that is gonna, and it's hope. And it helped, that joining helps us to clear away blocks inside ourselves that stop us from taking those steps to help other people understand what we know already, and it allows us to be conduits of creating change and embracing awareness that we need to create that change. And so we doesn't matter where we are, and I know this from sitting at the table, I do, and having spent 9 years as an elected rep in the Council of the Haida Nation, sometimes that the energy is so hard, and that I've learned that all I need to do is hold my energy in that room, just pull it in, just keep pulling it in to make, and then eventually something shifts. I don't need to even say a word, it's just about holding on to that energy. And that's what we're doing here today, and trying to bring to this larger conference. And I'm hoping that we will. And so I'm really grateful to be with this panel, and after listening to you, and grateful to Christopher for bringing us here. And one of the things that always remains with me is it's not the truth unless everyone wins. It's not. We're First Nations people, and we're on the ground with all the challenges and issues, and also the blessings. But it's not us we're doing this for, it's all of us. It's and like Makua said, we're all the same. We're, that overused statement about we're all one doesn't make much sense sometimes, but we're the same people. We all have red blood. We all want the same things for our children. We want this planet to be healthy so that people can experience the blessings that are there for us. And as long as we keep healing ourselves, those blessings keep coming. And so I'm grateful to everyone at this conference who has come to try to make a difference in any way they can. And so thank you for listening to me. I'm sure it's not the last thing I'll say here, but Hawa, I'm really happy to be here. And now I need to pass it on to, oh my God, I've turned the page and I've lost your name. Ikaka, sorry, I'm sorry. And thank you for being patient with me with names. You guys, I'm a little nervous too. So anyway, Hawa for allowing us to be here and talk to you about what we know. So on to you, Ikaka, thank you.
Mahalo, thank you. Thank you, Cindy, Ehua, and Makua for the introductions and the kind words and all the love and support that I'm feeling. Hawaii, we call it aloha. A little bit about myself. My name is Ikaika Ka'ua Lihao Bishop. I was born and raised in the Ahupa of Ka'alaya, about 2 miles that way. Fortunately, here in Hawaii, we've still been pretty connected with our kupuna and our ancestral ways. I say that very liberally. I think not all of us have had the same privileges as me. So fortunately, I'm happy to share my experiences with a lot of people. And I think, you know, without repeating all of the concerns that we're all aware of nowadays, I want to highlight the fact that these discussions are becoming more prevalent and definitely our connection to the land. For us, it's very spiritual. We grew up learning that our connection to the land is the most important thing for life. It's the most important thing for our communities. It's the most important thing for our families. And I think the valuation of that is something that needs to be considered and analyzed and revisited. I grew up learning that we are a colonized nation. We are a Hawaiian nation colonized by the American government. And, you know, we were taught in our educational systems that this is the way to get ahead. This is the way to be successful. This is the way to interact with people. And a lot of that was contraindicating the way we feel. And it was a long journey for me and still continuing to learn and heal from this and share about the things that we've experienced intergenerationally, the traumas that we carry, not just within our own lives, but the lives of the ancestors before us, are evident in our faces, and it's evident in our lands. Not very many people we know own the land that they steward, they rent it. And you know, when we value something like money, it's really hard to leverage your feelings when it costs money to be able to experience those things. So I'd like to show a little bit more about where I live and I love. And this is Kako Oiwi. This is a 400-acre parcel. We're a nonprofit. We do still lease this land from the government. But so you can see, we host approximately 30 families who are invited to steward what we call lo'ikalo, a crop that we grow culturally, which was almost wiped off the face of this earth because of pineapple and sugarcane and cattle. But for the last 10 years, Hawaii's been going through a renaissance. The native people are going back into our ancestral lands and farming at all costs. So for me, I have the honor of sharing with people, and I found this to be, you know, my true passion in life, of all walks, of all backgrounds, of of any, culture, class, creed, whatever you call it. I don't discriminate. If you love growing food, this is where I want you to be. I think in order for people to really reconnect with each other, they need to get back to the foundations of where, civilization came from. Came from people growing food. And since we've been colonized, we've constantly been told that, you know, corn needs to come yellow in a plastic bag, and bread needs to come in a plastic bag, and apples need to be red, and they all need to be red. And I think that's just atrocious, simply atrocious. So my short-term mission for right now is educating people about how food grows and how you can use food to recreate your culture, recreate your connection to your culture, recreate your connection to people, recreate your connection to the land. And it's through accessing these food systems right here. And, you know, if I think people get kind of bent out of shape when they think about money and they think about, oh, but I don't have money to buy a farm, I don't have money to buy tractors. And those were all the types of things that kept us from enjoying these spaces and connecting in these places. So fortunately, we get subsidized through federal funding. We're a nonprofit, and it's about conservation. So with conservation comes stewardship, and now the research has shown that the way the indigenous peoples manage their lands, they now call it biocultural restorative and regenerative situations like ours, where because the Hawaiians are farming their cultural crops, the native species are able to return. I had the honor of asking a researcher once. I was about to go into a taro patch to till, except she was sitting there watching the native birds, counting the populations. And I didn't want to disturb her research. So I waited all day for her to leave the field. She didn't leave the field. So finally, near the end of the day, I said, I got to get my work done. So I approached her and I said, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I need to bring my tractor into the taro patch. She said, oh, good. I want to see what happens. And I was like, wait, what? You want to see me go into the taro patch? She said, yeah, I've been watching these birds all day, and I want to see what happens when you go into the taro patch with the tractor. And I laughed. I was like, I was waiting for you to leave. She was like, I was waiting for you to show up. And I said, I know what happens when the birds go into the taro patch. They follow the tractor and they eat all the worms that the tractor fills up. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I want to see. And I said, let me ask you this. Do you think that there's more native birds inside of our taro patches? Or do you think that there's more native birds inside of that area over there where there's no taro patches? Just tell me for certain, if you stood all day in the middle of that area over there where there's no taro patches, you wouldn't see any native birds. So today's day and age, it really overwhelms me to hear those validating points of view coming from researchers, because a lot of the knowledge that our kupuna had set forth and laid out as a blueprint was refuted for so many years. And it's taken at least 2 or 3 generations now for a lot of the groundwork that they did for the past 1,000 generations to slowly come back into restoration. And, you know, there's not a lot of Native Hawaiians left on this earth. And there's still a lot of Native Hawaiian knowledge around. So for me, I feel privileged and honored to be able to share this with everyone. Everyone needs a connection to a land, to a healing space, to a space where they can feel and they can share and they can enjoy and they can love and they can support each other. And I found that space for me. It's here where I grow food and I can show people what food really is, food that's coming off of the land. I shared some corn with a friend this morning, and it was what we call B grade. If you're a farmer like me, there's no such thing as B grade. It's all food. But it's a bag that I had to grade because of the economic value of money. So we A grade and we B grade, and the B grade doesn't get sold. The B grade gets given to ourselves to feed our bellies. But I had to ask him, I said, do you know how to trim corn? And he looked at me and he goes, of course. That's what I want to hear. You know, I don't want to be able to pull this food off of the fields and put it in front of people, which I've experienced time and time again, And the first thing they asked me is, what do you do with it? And I'm like, well, it's food, you know. And so that's the incentive for me. It's not telling people that farming will make you $1 million. Um, it's telling people that living in this lifestyle is a healthy way to live. It keeps us active. It keeps us attentive. It keeps us intuitive. And then whatever you eat is the energy coming directly from our gods. You know, the rain is our God, the sun is our God, the clouds are our gods, the land is our gods. And so when you work with our gods and they give you the fruit of your labor, that's energy, that's mana. That's providing not just sustenance for you physically, but also mentally and spiritually, emotionally. So people may not recognize that right off the bat, but through incentivizing their love for food, I hope to create spaces where we can passionately enjoy sharing in these experiences. And through sharing these experiences, the value changes. I've been hosting workshops now here on the farm since I think July of 2021. All of 2020, we were closed to the public, but we grew more food here than I've grown in my entire life put together. And 2021, we opened up opportunities for volunteers to come and start learning. And you know, in the 20 years that I've been farming and hosting workshops, I'm really happy to hear that the discussions and the languages are changing. Um, People truly are starting to invest in food, not as a commodity, but rather as a source of vitality. And I've had so many returning volunteers who have zero expectation except just love for being here and love for doing anything that allows them to continue having access to this space, access to these resources. And it's truly an honor because these spaces don't exist. They don't. This is few and far between, but we are working together to make sure that these spaces remain accessible for generations upon generations. Um, so having these volunteers continue to return shows me that they're valuing this experience and they're valuing this system above the economies that are colonizing us. And I hope and I pray that one day we can use these investments to leverage our own sovereignties back towards the people who love this land, who are caring for this land, who are living on this land without any expectations or obligations from anyone else except themselves. So again, truly honored and thankful for this experience and the opportunity to share with the collective around. Um, very happy to continue spreading the message about our food and that whatever you see on TV is just one story. There's so many stories out there that are real and that have much more value than what you see on TV. So thank you again, and I hope to continue this discussion further if anyone's interested. Mahalo. Can I pass it back to Makua for guidance? Aloha.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you, Brother Ikaika. That's such a powerful testimony right there, direct from the land. And Mama Cindy, thank you as well for your beautiful sharing and the stewardship, all that you are holding there with your community. I mean, I've been just taking notes. I'm a note taker because when I hear something beautiful and moving, I want to make note of it. And a couple of themes I keep hearing, is the unity and the community and the connection and then the continuity. I think what you're speaking of, Ikaika, in terms of ensuring for generations to come, the same as you, Cindy, with the work there in your home. It's powerful to witness. I guess I'll share a little bit about the work that I'm up to in relationship to the time. As I mentioned, I'm here in Los Angeles, California, and I have a couple of plants out front. I try to tend to that with my partner here. We take care of a few beautiful plants. You know, LA is the whole LA basin is essentially desert, you know, that the city, you know, has grown onto and from. So it's been a bit of an interesting relationship with the land here, specifically living in the urban environment. And I've lived in other urban environments as well, but I would say I tend to do my work in the field of consciousness. And by that, I want to just point out that I think that we're all together navigating a return to consciousness, a return to connection. We've been impeded in many ways. And several years ago, I was introduced to this idea of reforming the calendar. And I had never even considered the impact of the standard Gregorian calendar that we all use as a business calendar, sort of a civil standard of how we navigate our lives. I never really thought about its impact on my consciousness. I just took it for granted, as we tend to do, right? Now, getting more deep into studies of traditional cultures and coming to appreciate an orientation to nature, all cultures have their own timekeeping systems before the Gregorian calendar was summarily imposed across the planet about 400 years ago. But one of the things we're remembering as we're returning to the land and remembering our traditions and our relationship with this land is that, you know, we have been disconnected from our heart, and our heart is our connection to the land. Our heart is where that connection is made real. And so in this way, I discovered the importance of shifting the calendar system. I'll put it like this. I learned that we have to deconstruct the calendar to decolonize the mind, because it's so much a part of the colonization code, the domination code, the imposition of the Gregorian calendar, that is expressly a business calendar. It's not oriented to any natural cycle specifically. It isn't. And it serves its purpose, but its purpose, you know, also serves to separate us, because we're easier to dominate, frankly, if we're operating separately. Inherently, everything about nature is interconnected, interdependent. And so along this line, I've been working as part of a movement for the past 30 plus years to shift our civil calendar to a harmonic standard. And that basically means shifting from the 12-month Gregorian calendar to a new calendar of 13 months, 28 days each. Now, that's not a new idea to many traditional cultures, a 28-day calendar. It actually maps or correlates with the average lunation cycle, the lunar cycle. Many cultures are coordinated with the moon cycle. It coordinates to the human fertility cycle of the cycle in women and women's fertility, and the human fertility cycle of 28 days. These are all markers in nature for nature's timekeeping. And so as we're on this track of reconnecting and becoming conscious of this connection, one of the tools that I've been helping to promote is again a 13-month, 28-day calendar. And I invite people to visit 13months28days.info for more information. I could spend hours talking with you about the calendar, and I'm not going to do that. But I suffice it to say, of just positing it here as a tool for us to consider along with the other tools we have, because as we're dealing with the question of climate change, one of the things that largely gets overlooked is the climate of consciousness that leads to the changes in the climate that we're experiencing. So we want to find ways to come to terms with the fact that we've been in ways uprooted from the continuity of nature, and we want to do our best to get back in that flow. And so one of those things is to begin to track a natural time frequency. And by frequency, I mean cycle of timing. You know, frequency is how frequently one may do something, right? So in this way, there is a healing and a revealing that also occurs as we begin to attune ourselves to a creative cycle as opposed to a business cycle, a business calendar, as it were. The business calendar doesn't really take regard for the feeling or the relatable essence between human to human or human and nature. It's more a matter of how to possess or impose or control or coordinate things, you know, toward an end that's usually driven around profit, usually driven around this idea of how to control. And so by shifting to a natural timing cycle, we begin to resensitize our mind to these inherent cycles in nature. I'll show you one thing in particular with the human body. When we look at our human body, we have 13 articulating joints in the human body. If you count your ankles, your knees, your hips, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders, and your neck, there's 13 articulating joints in the body. And each hand possesses 14 what are called phalanges or flexors. If you do this with your hand, you have 14 of them in each hand, and that's 28. So the factors of the timing frequency of nature is inherent in our body. This is one of the things that we've been removed from just the inherent awareness of how nature is perfect. There's nothing to perfect about what's already perfect. It's really just to be in presence and right relationship with. And so that's one of the reasons why making the impacts of this inaccurate, erroneous calendar, and I say it's inaccurate and erroneous because, again, it doesn't connect us to anything in nature. And, you know, I'll spare the details in terms of, you know, how it has gotten to be the way it has, but we can imagine that here next year will be 440 years under this domination code in terms of that particular system. So I like to approach the subject of calendar as a systems change conversation. And I think each one of us here in our own way is applying systems and a systems change approach in how we're stewarding and how we're working with what we've been entrusted with to care for and to share with others and to encourage their growth and their development and them to return as well. So as we talk about returning to the land, we live in a time, according to many cultures, a time of prophecy. And so as part of prophecy, we're in a time where we're called to return to natural time. And by the way the panelists here are living their lives, they're embodying that in their commitment and stewardship. Now, we want to encourage other people to become aware of how to make that transition because, again, we're dealing with factors both of a physical nature, but also a mental nature as well. As I kind of opened up with this idea of the noosphere, this mental field that surrounds the earth. Some traditions refer to it as the akasha, or this field where all of our collective thoughts and ideas are held. The memory that has occurred on the earth, all of it is held in this layer. And so we're in a time of prophecy, we're in a time of transition, we're going through a process of healing where we're also now being invited to return to a sensitization, to return to a right relationship within the creation itself as a conscious being. One of the things that I guess I wanted to also impart is that, you know, we don't see Earth as an inanimate object. You know, in the ways that we can witness, the Earth has been very objectified, but truly Earth is a living being. I mean, she is inherently our mother, our provider, our creator, directly, as far as we know in this form. And so we want to get in right relationships. So one of those, again, those hidden blind spots has been the towering effect of that Gregorian calendar and what that colonization code, what it does, how it causes us to engage. And we're in a window of opportunity where, because of things like the technology we're able to share today, because of the ways that we can share best practices, we can look at new ideas. We're in a window where we do have an opportunity to chart some new courses. And so I just wanted to mention that. I'm going to leave a link. Maybe there's a way to share links with folks as well who are out there listening to this conversation, who may come to it later. But I'll find a way to share some links to more of the information that I'm sharing with folks as well. I'm sure in many cases it's new information for folks considering, changing their calendar. But time is of the mind, and so we want to definitely get that the mind in right relationship with this mind of Earth. So yeah, giving thanks. I also want to give a shout out to Christopher for the invitation to share today with you all, and for the support of Lauren as well in this process. So I will definitely share a link in the chat to everybody. But give thanks and feel free. I don't know if there are any questions out there in the audience or anything that either of you feel compelled to share, but I feel complete with that little intro of the calendar change.
I'd be happy to say a little bit about time when it comes to farming. Um, I'm not proud to say that pretty much all of 2020, I never took a day off, not even a weekend. And people will say, "Oh, how come you spend so much time at work?" And my response was always, "I don't work a day in my life. I love what I do." Gratefully, my wife is supportive and understands that this journey that I'm on, um, it's providing for me something that nothing else can. So when it comes to time, um, I don't know what day of the week it is, and mostly because I work with plants. Plants don't have an iPhone to tell them when to wake up. They don't have a watch to tell them when to fruit or when to flower. Same thing goes for all of the animals out in the fields. They don't have a clock. They don't have a calendar. Um, Same thing goes for the sun and the rain. So one of the hardest things for me uh, to teach people is how to be, in Hawaiian we call it kilo, or learning through observation. And you have to kilo every moment that you possibly can, every moment. And what that will do for you is it will allow you to interact with these natural processes much more intimately. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things you can possibly experience. Um, Growing of plants and cultivating of nature is all truthful. Everything about it is honest and truthful. So when you grow a plant and you watch it flourish and you watch it thrive, and then you watch it blossom and fruit and then eventually start to die, um, that relationship is true in all aspects of life. And I think it's one of the great ways to see how we've been controlled with time. If you think that you can plant a bunch of plants and get a bunch of crops according to a day-to-day schedule, I mean that if you ever try, you'll learn that there are so many more things that are going to dictate that result than just time alone. The days on the calendar, and with what I have to do in order to be productive, I'm planning seasonally. And thankfully, there's data that helps to support these observations. When we started realizing that we hadn't had rain for a really long time, we were trying to plan our planting season, and we weren't trying to plant it month to month. We were trying to plant it season to season, and that wasn't dependent on time. That was dependent on when the rains will return, when the sun will get warm enough, when the flooding will occur. And we're speculating, oh well, the flooding is going to be around April, May-ish time. And, those are just words that we use to describe the timing of it. But in the end, those are just the ways, that's just the way we know how to communicate. If there was a better way for us to communicate without using those labels, it would be more accurately described as that's when the rains and the floods come, and not sometime in April and May. So I do believe that when you develop these relationships with these natural ecosystems, there really is no need for time anymore. So yeah, thank you for bringing that topic up, and I'd love to share more. But if Cindy has something to share, I'd love to hear that too.
I do, as usual. Actually, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, but before I start talking about that, I want to talk about time. Nothing irritates me more than this, what we just went through today, this time change, 1 hour here, 1 hour in the spring, going forward and back. Like, what's the point? Is, I don't know why it's one of my pet peeves in life, but it pisses me off every time. So that's my wisdom on time. And I was so grateful to hear you talk about that, because, the Mayan calendar is different, and there's different reasons for, and First Nations people have described major events on flooding times, or we watch our tide go out every day, way out and back up again, and everything is on a cycle that has nothing to do with the calendar, right? And it's interesting to hear all that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, we have what's called a Haida Gwaii Watchmen Program, and it started out as a volunteer program by some of our elders in my village, and they went down because we were hearing stories about people going into Guayhanas and going to the totem poles, the 100-year-old totem poles, and taking pieces off and taking off on the fishing boats or on their boats with them. And so the other part of that was the government was starting to, and the rest of the world was starting to refer to the area as abandoned, but those are our villages. That's where we come from, and they weren't abandoned. They may be ancient, but they're not let go. So they started going down, and then eventually it evolved into a Watchman program, and where we hired people to go into I think at the time it was 6, there's only 5 now, specific sites where we put watchmen, Haida people with, we had a senior watchman and then youth and elders at the same time, so that everyone was learning from those elders about the area and just about hospitality in general, how to treat people. But the aim was to claim it, make sure the world knew that these are our villages. We're Haidas, we're still here, we haven't gone anywhere, they're not abandoned. And also to educate them on who we were. So there started to be sailboats and lots of visitors coming, and it got more structured as time went on. But the interaction with the watchmen was the highlight of their trips, because they learned who we were, and it started to create relationships where those visitors were now supporting us to do what we needed to do for our homelands, because we were educating them as they came in. And so that's still going on today. It's something that we're trying to evolve into more responsibility for the watchmen. I don't need to go into all that detail, but the point is that there are ways to work together and we have done that with visitors in that regard. And the other thing, there's 2 more, and I'll try not to take up too much more time, but I wanted to talk about language and how our languages in our areas describe our lands and waters in ways that nothing else can. And so we do have a Haida language school, but our elders are dying off, and it sometimes feels really desperate that, and like time's running out, that we can't grasp this. So much was taken away through all the government processes around not being able to speak our languages in residential schools. And But we have this, over the years, when it first started, we had our elders recording the language. So that'll be there, but there are so many different ways to describe one thing, like weather, like poop even, like it's just a whole nother game. And I don't know my Haida language. I understand some of it, but there was always, I remember there always with my nana, my grandmother, always being so much laughter around the language. There's just so many amazing, the joining in that laughter, just how things were described made them laugh. And that's what I grew up with, was that laughter, but I didn't ever learn the language. And my nana would forget because I'd stay with her so much and talk to me, and I started to, but then she died and that didn't happen. But I just wanted to mention that because this is our knowledge. Those are our knowledge holders, and they're leaving us, and it feels like we need to grab on somehow. But we do what we can, and we have to start remembering we can access that information. You talked about Akashic or records. What you're talking about, that energy that surrounds us, that field of energy is there. We just have to get comfortable with accessing it and knowing it's the truth for us. And so the last thing I want to talk about right now is during the process of creating a management plan for Guayhanas, in that management plan, we created a zoning plan. And it created all kinds of tension everywhere because the fishermen, commercial fishermen, were thinking they were going to be blocked out, and the Haidas thought they weren't going to be able to go there anymore. And that's the one thing about these agreements. There's traditional use has never been stopped. It's been a priority in the Guayhanas agreement, and it's also been a priority in the marine agreement. And so our people aren't stopped from going into the area ever. And so that's an important piece of information for our area. During that zoning plan, we started to roll out the draft management plan plus the zoning plan, and the fishermen got themselves all riled up right away. And so we started to meet with them. And going to Vancouver, where there was big meetings, like lots of fishermen there, and our team, and lots of anger. And so we just kept talking and kept talking together and kept talking together. And as we talked, I learned how much fear was there for them, that it was a way of life that they've had for generations, some of them, and livelihood, of course, and that they were terrified that they wouldn't have it anymore. And so in learning that about them, about that it wasn't just money for them, although that was part of it, it started to create some space for us to have discussions. And I learned that we could sit at the table and just allow them to vent, and then get into talking about what we need to talk about, why it was important to save the area, the writings on the wall, the oceans are in trouble. They knew all this. They just need to have the discussion about it, I think. And we did so many meetings with them, and sometimes we'd leave with nothing resolved, but we just kept putting it out there. And eventually we came to a place of one or two of them figured out that they need to work with us, and they just got it, and something one of us said, me, triggered something in them, and they were leaders in the fishing community, and they just started to work with us, started to make sense. And this relationship was built over time, and it started out so difficult, and it just felt like it was never going to go anywhere, but we held the energy. I sat in that room, and that's all I did some days. Didn't even speak, and I'd wait and say something when it felt right, but wasn't fighting with them. And so we pulled that energy in and just allowed it to work with us. And in the end, they helped us develop that zoning plan to create a better way to use the oceans around Haida Gwaii, and to still allow them to use it without, that where they didn't feel like they were pushed out, and it was their decision. Some of it, the boundaries were their decision in the end, things that we didn't come up with on our own. And so that's one relationship that I'm particularly proud of. And then just because we made really good friends through that process, in the end, some of them are going to be friends for life. And they're going to help us protect the waters around Haida Gwaii because they learned about who we were and why things were important to us. Once they got past the fear, then we started joining and we created this amazing zoning plan together. And when those kids were found in Kamloops, all those buried children from the residential schools, one day I woke up and I looked at my email, and there was an email from one of these fishermen, just sending love, just something he probably would never have done before joining, around this process that we did, and acknowledging the hurt and the stuff that, letting me know he understood what we were going through, and did more research on his own to know exactly what that was all about. Mostly that stuff is ignored by mainstream society, but this relationship we created found a place to bring people in. And he's like, I just feel, I cried. I sat at my computer and just cried and just thought, okay, small moves, but big energy, like we're this is what we do here. This is what we do. We join each other, and then the rest comes. It's not about, it's not even about climate change or marine protection. First, we have to care about each other, and then the rest just falls into place. The food security, all of that. And so I wanted to share that with you because, and share with the conference, because this is what it takes to get things done in this world, just joining with each other and caring about each other. And those are just examples of how we've made it work here in our little place on the planet. So
That's beautiful, Cindy. Wow. I was thinking as you were speaking, we've been convened by the Empathy Accelerator. And so as you were discussing what you were sharing, it really does resonate with me that that's really what this is meant to do. The space that we want to create here is to really accelerate empathy among our human family. And what the work you're doing, what you've just described, is a perfect example of that in action. Taking people who haven't had another reason or hadn't before come together, but now it seems like it's obviously necessary. And everything that you all shared, I mean, acknowledging the hurt, acknowledging the fear, acknowledging the truth, and the shared future that you have, I think it's just a really remarkable story. And I think if there is something, as you said, for people attending COP26, for anybody listening into this conversation, definitely a takeaway for me as well, is that we want to implore people to listen, and as Ikaika was sharing, to practice observation. Like, that's a space of receptivity. You're not being closed off observing nature or life. You're open and you're humble, and it's a beautiful and very powerful thing. So I do attest that even though it may seem like small steps, these are, as you said, big energy. So thank you for sharing that, both of you. And I would love to speak about the fact that there will be a ceremony, a Ho'oponopono ceremony, that another member of the Empathy Accelerator will be hosting on Sunday the 14th, kind of wrapping up this series of side events alongside COP26. I think it's going to be a very special moment as well, to acknowledge and to create space in the heart for all of our relations to witness and acknowledge. As you were sharing, as you got the email or the message from the fisherman who was acknowledging and really honoring the situation and what is surfaced for us to all hold space of compassion and conscience for. It's a very important time, healing and revealing, for sure, for sure. I would love to invite any of you to feel free to jump in anytime and share in this way.
I would love to share, thank you, Makua, a little bit to add to Sudith and Cindy's story of their rehabilitative efforts and restorative efforts here in Hawaii. That we went through a large political shift about 100 years ago, and it went from consciousness of people who understood that their relationship with the land was a symbiotic one to people who understood that land was, like you were mentioning, Makua, something tangible, that was just or basically inanimate, that could be commodified. And for a lot of the native people here, that was a concept that was hard for them to grasp. And for a lot of the people that immigrated here, it was a very easy concept for them to grasp. And so, today we are plighted with, like I had mentioned earlier, not just a lack of ownership, but also a lack of access. And I was fortunate when I was younger. My parents showed us that these resources were still here. They're still there. They just aren't being used. They aren't being utilized by enough people. So luckily, we can still legally gain access to those resources because of the registration processes that happened when the government shifted. And so I think today, even though we are, colonized by the American government, we still have the cultural rights to practice these things. And I think the hard part for us is finding the people who have enough interest in that to collectively join and do that together. The movement is definitely growing. There's definitely more people joining the movement to access these resources, but unfortunately, there's still a lot of legality behind it. And we like to say, oh, we're just gonna be gung ho and go in there and do what we want to do because we can, and that has met us with a lot of conflict. I'm sure you've heard about the Mauna Kea and the telescope of our sacred lands, and that was just the most publicized event of what we've gone through. But in a small way, we are accessing these resources in the backs of our valleys, and they're called awai. They're irrigation ditches which allow us to cultivate the lands that provide our culture for us, provide our spirituality for us, and they exist, but they're not being utilized. And for most of my life, we have gone into these valleys and we've accessed these awai and we've restored these awai and we've returned our cultural crops back to the people that historically stewarded that land. So to reiterate, the issue is not necessarily having access to these lands anymore because we're aware of the legality and the proper ways to win the battles for these lands, not necessarily all of them, but in these small ways, these areas, these farming zones. It's getting people who want to continue loving to do this. you know, finding that incentive for them, because you know, we can win the battles in court all day long, but the land is not alive without the people that love it, you know, especially in a place like Hawaii, where on Oahu, uh 99% of everything that's growing here was not a native ecology for the native people. It's 100% rewritten. So it's hard for me to say, oh, this is the way it was done and this is the way it should be, because when it was done that way, the landscape was 100% different, you know? So just because we might have a knowledge about the past and want to exercise our knowledge about the past, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be great at building our relationship with the present. So a lot of the knowledge is out there, and a lot of the past knowledge is guiding us, but a lot of the knowledge still needs to be learned. It still needs to be learned, and it still needs to be experienced. So we've been very successful at restoring these awai into our homelands, and we can continue to keep building upon those successes, but it's going to take more people. It's going to take more people who love each other and want to share in these experiences and love what they do. You know, don't work a day in your life if you just keep on providing for yourself and providing for your community, and it will provide for you. So thank you for letting me share.
Okay, I see somebody messaging us. If there are any questions from anybody out there in the audience, they can be asked by clicking the Q&A button. I see a prompt here, so hopefully people know what that means on their respective technology. As you were speaking, Ikaika, it brought to mind a question for me and for both of you. I want to pose to both of you. As you said, it's, you know, the opportunity is there now, given the precedents and the steps that have been taken, the restoration work that's been underway. What are ways to incentivize and engage people? You know, I know characterized by them actually having a love for it. What are ways perhaps that you're finding, you know, either successes or challenges with engaging? Because I think that there's a real shared sense of that, considering we're looking also for generations to come. How are we engaging the next generation? I know there's a lot of young people who's have their attention and energy focused around COP26 right now. And I'm just curious, you know, like, what are you discovering as both a challenge, but even a success with regard to engaging? Either of you, feel free to take the question.
I think for me, what we're doing here at our table, the AMB, Archipelago Management Board, is reconciliation. It's beyond, you know, we're already down that road. And so the Haida Nation has a title case in the courts, and we may never use that, but it's leverage for us to move things forward. Yet we may as well. There's some really good stuff going on within the Council of the Haida Nation for the nation with the government right now. How to engage people? One of the ways that we do it is every year we have a House of Assembly, we call it, and it's a House of Assembly convened for Haida people to get information from the Council of the Haida Nation who works and who are elected and work on behalf of the Haida Nation. And they get to go and ask questions and put forward ideas. And so that happens once a year. It's been weird with COVID, you know, lately, but so there hasn't been the same process happening around going physically, although they did have allow some people to go this year. And so that's another way to bring awareness to the issues and get people involved. And they also have a website where they're reporting out and giving people information and so a lot of the young people are tapping into that now. And for me, I have a niece, for instance. I have a niece who just completed a marine biology degree at Hawaii Pacific. She got a scholarship and she was there for 4 years. I know, and we didn't even get to go to a grad because of COVID, so it was kind of a letdown in the end, but she's come back home. But she's watched all of us. Somehow, our First Nations people, it doesn't matter where you are, there's no aspiration to be a politician, but you are part of the process that has to look after the land. There's only so many of us, and we grow up listening to it in one ear. And I never said, oh, this is what I want to do, but it's inbred. So that's, to me, that's how all of us grow up, and we don't have a choice. It's a responsibility. And we may not do it as a politician, but there are other ways, and the things we can do to support. And for the Haida Nation, we have feasts and potlatches, and at those potlatches, businesses talked about, that's what potlatches are. And so they talk about what's going on, and our hereditary chiefs talk about it, the speakers talk about everything that's going on, and the witnesses are our youth and our people. And so they learn about what's important to all of us. And that's another way to engage people. And the other thing, I'm really happy about a lot of the young people now in my community, my Haida community. They're going and getting degrees, and they're coming back home. They're not just going off anymore. They're actually coming back home because they're interested in looking after the lands and waters of Haida Gwaii. And so that's how we get information out through the feasts, through the potlatches, through the Council of the Haida Nation. They do quarterly reporting outs, and then the House of Assembly every year. And then me, I have a niece, she grows up in families who are talking about all of this all the time. And I'm so proud of her. She's 22, and she's come back and is interested, and she's now working for the Council of the Haida Nation right now, in the marine department, you know. And so she grew up with all of us talking about what we're interested in, and so she listened, and it was important to her to go and do something, and we all coached her when she had questions, and you know, that kind of stuff. And so those are just a few ways. There are here. Parks Canada is here, and we work, that's what I do. We work with Parks Canada at the table. They're 2 members of our board are from Parks Canada, and they have an office here, and our goal as AMB and as the Haida Nation is to have 100% Haida employment there at some point or another. And that we know that's going to be a process, and we know it's going to take long. It's only now that our young people are coming back with those degrees. But half of the employment there is Haida people. And so they're learning constantly as well. And they're also bringing back information to us about our village sites, and you know, the digs they do there, and the archaeology and stuff. So that is and as AMB, we try to make sure that Haida people have priority when it comes to hiring. So we do a Haida posting, and then if we don't get anybody suitable, then we do it, open it up. So that's another way we engage people. But the bottom line for me is we have to start healing ourselves as individuals. We need to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to be very successful in what we do. And we get caught in the fight when we're coming from a place of hurt and abuse, and you know, all of that. And so if we need to move that out of our way in order to, and it's easy to say, harder to do. All the healing I've done is still take a dive in the other direction every now and then. It's a process till you die, I think. But I think in order to really be successful, that's what we need to do. We need to understand that we don't have enemies, we just have opportunities, right? I'm really, that's one of the biggest things I think. But there are lots of ways to engage. We just have to get creative. And now's the time because the younger people are really interested. And we have conferences like this one that's going on now, this climate change one, or another global conference coming up about marine conservation. And so, just opportunities, just get the word out. Thank you.
Halos. Yeah. Wow. Totally resonates with me. I can't agree more. I was fortunate enough to have access to the land as from the earliest years, and was mentored by people who also shared the love and access for the land. And I think that's one of the easiest tools we can use to create this perception of value that I think is so important. I've had the privilege of interacting with in the younger generation now, and I'm very happy to hear how aware they are of the social oppressions and the intrinsic degradation of our cultures through mass media and the forms of communication that we have today. Um, I want to point out that some of the pitfalls that we've experienced is definitely what we're being taught in our schools and what we're learning through watching television and listening to mass media. Um, the narratives are destructive. The narratives are very toxic, and I myself don't even watch TV anymore because of it. In Hawaii, we have some guidelines that we use as tools that I love to use in order to help create interest with people. And one of them is they're called Olelo no Eao, or wise sayings. Um, and one of them is Makahana ka Ike, or the learning is in the doing. And I think due to the pandemic, a lot of people are looking for something more than what they have right now, especially because of the the secular systems that we've begin to create and now adopting. Uh, and people we're just not alive if we live confined like that. So they're coming out here to the fields and they're coming out here looking for something, and they don't have any expectations, and it's beautiful to see them experience the same things that I do, and learn the value that I have, and that for me is the direction that's gaining, hopefully going to be gaining more support, is giving them the opportunity to experience these things and learn where the value is in our communities, where the value is in their life. When they take the food home, something that they've never even seen before. I have volunteers from Baltimore, Maryland, who has never seen laupele, this indigenous food that I've seen grown my entire life. It's a form of edible hibiscus, and he took it home and he made one of our cultural prepared dishes called lau lau, and he made lau laus with it, and it just blew my mind to see the smile on his face posted on social media. And that is one of the most rewarding things that I can have in today's day and age, with all of the um you know anti-cultural propaganda that's being disseminated through social media. To see this pro cultural movement exist, I feel is so important in order to gain more incentive with people. We need to see more of these truths out there so that people can value these truths and want to invest in these truths and participate in these truths. And the opportunity is here. And to resonate more with you, Cindy, I agree. The younger generation is having these discussions much more in depth, much more aware, and I think it's because we are helping to create these safe spaces. These safe spaces with discussion, and platforms like this event are creating these discussions and helping to support these discussions. So You know, where are the incentives? The incentives is really with us sharing our experiences, and then inviting everyone collectively to value them. You know, stop turning on the TV and valuing the majority, and start turning on the TV and increasing the truths. If we're gonna have to create better systems, we're gonna have to publish them. We're gonna have to make them even more aware. So send it out there far and wide, and keep sending it out there, and don't stop. So mahalo.
Beautifully said. Wow, thank you both. Um, because we are part of the side events for COP26, maybe kind of as we wrap this up, we want to, if you want to offer any message to delegates who are actually attending right now, if you have any message for them from your heart, from your nation, from the earth, uh, as you see it, as you feel it, this might be a good opportunity for us to offer any messages. And I think I'll just initiate by saying, you know, for those who are attending COP26 right now, and along the lines of part of our work is coming together as a human family, I just want to encourage people who are there with each other to get to know others who you didn't come there with. Make sure you get to know and take advantage of the opportunity to meet and talk story and share with somebody else. And, you know, as they say, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. So this is a wonderful opportunity for those who are there physically to get a chance to connect like this in a meaningful way. So that would be my sense of a message if I had anything to share with folks there. And I think as we've dialed into, you know, there's a lot here to do with the healing journey and the healing of our relationships, the healing of ourselves, and extending that to others in a beautiful way. So I would love to pass the mic to either of you to share any messages and kind of a closing sentiment for this conversation.
I am full of gratitude to be here with you, two lovely men. My heart is open, and grateful to Christopher and his Laura and Lauren, just to bring us together here. And places, events like this one are quite amazing. Like to have all of you people come together because you care about something deeply, and to learn and share while you're there is it's not a little thing. It's something amazing. It's something, it's magic. It's a miracle. It is a miracle. And what we learn at these conferences, I think, is that we get overwhelmed if we try to take it too much on, or worry about too much all at once. We just take it in little pieces and do what we can, where we can, the way we can. And I feel like there are some amazing people who come to these things who can move mountains, and I'm so grateful for y'all for that. I sit on my island here, far away from everything, far away from Los Angeles, far away from Hawaii, far away from Glasgow, and sometimes it just feels like a little bit of hopelessness happens. Hey, like a futile, like we're hitting our head against the wall sometimes, but then things like this happen, and then this joining happens like today with us, and hope lives. It's there for it's not impossible. It's not, and all it takes is one foot in front of the other. And I'm just have so much gratitude for that, and I have so much gratitude for the healing I've done in my life, and the people who have been there, paving the way for us to, for especially First Nations people, from my perspective, because we get to be not victims anymore. We get to be healed. We can let the victimhood go and move past it to actually come to do what we came to do here on this planet, because all of us have that purpose. And so I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude today about being invited, and just feel honored to have that invitation and to sit with both of you gentlemen, and Hawa, Christopher, for bringing us all together. Hawa, thank you.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you, Sudith and Makua. Thank you, Christopher, brother, for always including me in your such amazing and benevolent activities so far and wide. His scope spreads to be inclusive and compassionate towards everyone that's a part of his life. So mahalo, big mahalo, Christopher. Mahalo nui nui o ko to everyone who's listening in. Hopefully the words we've shared have inspired you to share the values that we have collectively presented here today. I think the message is resounding across the earth, especially today. In Hawaii, we have another Olelo Noel. It goes Ohe kahana nui ike alu ia, which means no task is too great if done together by all. And there's no excuses in today's day and age to not make that the most powerful tool on earth. With the way we're connected with technology today, everyone can make decisions in the click of a button, everyone. So this technology is not something to be feared unless you know how to use it as a tool. And if we decide to use it as a tool, we can make mountains move, or we can make mountains sacred. It really depends on where your values lie. So mahalo for letting me share mine, and I hope that I inspire the rest of you out there to go out and do something other than be alone. You know, you can be alone for a while, heal yourself, but I think through connecting with people and finding the joy in connecting with people, we can work together. We can work together sustainably. We can work together positively. We can work together healthily. And through that, we will all gain security against the things that try to divide us. So mahalo again for letting me share. And thank you to everyone for listening, and look forward to sharing the love and support anytime in the future. Come on out. Mahalo, guys.
Mahalo to you. Thank you both so much. What a blessing. What a blessing to spend this time together. And thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Lauren, for your support and the invitation to be here on behalf of the Empathy Accelerator. And prayerfully, we are helping accelerate the empathy across the planet in this way. What a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to share. So thank you all. And to all those listening out there, thank you. And feel free. Do you all have a point of contact to share? We can put in the chat for people, like a website or an email even. If possible, I'd be happy to put it in the chat just to share with folks who may be interested.
Sure. I'm using Instagram as my formal method of communicating with the world.
Nice.
It's Ikaika Flies, spelled Ikaika Flies. Yeah, so mahalo. Tune in and you can see all the fun stuff. Ika Flies.
Flies. Nice. Eddie Kaika Flies. Of course. And Cindy, how about yourself? Do you have a...
Well, I have an email address. I can type it in the chat, but I think,
sure,
I think we can all be reached through the Empathy Accelerator email.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'll pop this Instagram there, and I'll put mine in as well.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, I guess in closing, the only thing that comes to mind to say is I heard this wonderful thing recently that the word creator and reactor have the same letters, same exact letters. It's just a matter of the order, right? So it's an invitation to us to really tap into that creator center in each of us and move through in that way. So oftentimes we find ourselves reacting to quite a lot, but now we're also turning the page where we can really participate in co-creating this future, this beautiful regenerative reality that we're born to experience and to share. So I give thanks to both of you for your presence. And also to mention, there is a session number 3, which occurs tomorrow, Monday the 8th. And that is going to be the same time, 7 p.m. in Glasgow. And I don't know what time was that for you in Hawaii this morning, 8 a.m.?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. 9 a.m. Okay, because we have the time shift. You guys don't fall back or forward in Hawaii. You guys, another good example of natural time. Unmoved. I love it. So for those out there listening, please continue to join the Empathy Accelerator side events for the COP26. And you can tune in tomorrow, Monday the 8th, for session number 3. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Peace and blessings.
Mahalo. Aloha.
Aloha.